being yourself, you have to use at least some level of caution because you might be a very nice person. You can err on the side of being too nice. You can err on the side of being too hard. What I recommend is, Dave, let's debrief.
We've got someone that just got promoted into a key position in a big company. She's now running operations. First female ever to hold this position on this company. East Coast company, been around for a long time. And everybody in this position for her has been a man. It's been kind of a male-dominated organization a little bit. And she's stepped up into this role. She's awesome. She is totally ready for this job. And she's getting some feedback from folks kind of helping her prep her how she's going to introduce herself, how she's going to announce herself to the team. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm the new head of operations. This is who I am. And a lot of the advice she's been getting is, hey, you got to go in there hard. You got to come in there. And I think the phrase that they're using is you got to announce your presence with authority. You can't come in all timid and meager. You got to come in strong and let them know that you're here to run this department and that you're going to make this happen. So she calls me. She's like, hey, I've got this thing coming up. This is the advice that I'm getting. And she's aware. She's like, I understand what they're saying, but I'm not sure if that's right. And of course, my perspective is like, hey, actually, I think your instincts are on the mark. I don't think this is necessarily good advice. Now, look, the advice that she's getting, it's coming from a good place. They're trying to get her, they're trying to set her up to be successful, and they understand that. And they're right. She can't come in meager and meek and frail and like, oh, I'm not sure this is right for me, but here I am. I said, but you don't need to announce your presence with authority. I said, as a matter of fact, listen, if you don't want to, you don't need to announce yourself at all. There's a literal announcement that went out to this company in the form of a memo that said, announcement, new head of operations is this person. So if you don't want to announce yourself at all, you don't need to because it's already happened. I said, but what you really should think about is, what are your expectations for this role, for you in this role? So what are the things that you think that you need to do in this role? I said, so why don't you tell me what are your expectations? What are the things you're thinking about? Well, I want the team to do well. I want to give them the things that they need. I want to help them and give them the resources and the tools and the training they need so they can be successful. And we kind of went down this list of all the things that she felt was her job. And as you can probably tell from this list, she's a trooper. She's in the game. She understands it. And of course, like with 83.9% of every question that it gets asked, it's right in leadership strategy and tactics, which is, hey, what do you do on day one? You don't need to walk in and say, listen up, I'm in charge now. Here are my expectations for you. Here's what I want you to do. Just walk in, tell them, hey, listen, I am honored to be in this role. I am thrilled to have this opportunity. I care about this team and I want to help this team be successful. My expectation is that I will do whatever it takes for us to be successful. And so when we did the role play, we said, hey, if you just come in and your opening speech is 30 seconds long and that's all you say, how do you think they're going to react? She's like, well, they'll probably be fine with it. I said, good, then why don't you just do what you think you should do? And it's not that advice was bad in the sense of like they're trying to set you up to fail, but how do you think it's going to come across if you walk and go, hey, listen up. I may not be the person you thought was going to be in this job, but I am. You might have had some ideas of how things used to be or who should be in here, but I'm in charge now, and this is how. And it's so when you're on that detached perspective, it's so obvious when you see that. Again, you do not want to go in there to be a pushover. I said, but the opportunity for you to show who you are as a leader, your opportunity to really reveal what kind of leader you are and what they can expect from you isn't going to come from this speech. As a matter of fact, the speech probably isn't going to even be all that memorable. You don't need to make it a big deal. You, in enough time, are going to get challenged with leadership issues that you're going to have to get engaged in and get involved in, and that's where we're going to see what kind of leader you are. So open up the book, refresh that a little bit. do not announce your presence with authority. Come in and let them know what you expect, and the expectation is that you're here to help the team win.
I'm clearly, when you get into a situation like this, and you knew what's going on with the company, but just for someone someone that doesn't understand the whole concept, we work with companies, so you have an understanding of what the situation is on the ground that she's going into, which means that you know that she's going into a functional team, right? Not a bad team, not a team where they're firing the leader because everything's all jacked up. Those are different scenarios, and those are also scenarios that I talk about leadership strategy and tactics. And even in those scenarios, does that mean that you roll in there and you come off the top ropes? Usually not off the top ropes unless you've got some catastrophic morale or catastrophic ethical issues. Then it might call for, some heavy hitting coming out of the gate. So there's that, but you have a team, a functional team. Well, how do you take over a functional team? Yeah, you go to page 157 of Leadership Strategy and Tactics, and you follow those guidelines. When it comes to, here's an issue where it makes me a little nervous, and this is probably making her nervous too. Hey, here's what you better do. Like, if I was getting ready to go meet my team for the first time and someone says, hey, listen, here's what's going on, you better do this, that would start to make me question, well, like, wait a second. If you're needing to tell me how to introduce myself to the team, this you must not have a lot of confidence in what's going on here, and you must be worried, and you must see me as weak. And so that I'm sure that starts to creep into someone's head. I was doing my first interviews for the officer candidate program that I went into in the Navy. And so, I was talking to the executive officer at the time at SEAL Team 1, and, he was heading up this officer review board. I think it's, officer review board, where I would go in and meet with these 3 or 4 officers, and they would ask me a bunch of questions, and they would give me a recommendation based on how I responded. And I wasn't really nervous or anything, but, he just, as a good leader, he said, hey, let's talk about the thing that you're about to go to. He's like, are you nervous? I'm like, not really. And he goes, okay, well, good. He goes, check this out. When you go in there, there's no reason to be nervous, because you're in there for a reason. You're in there because you've been recommended to get this position. And so you're in there because you're a professional and you are smart and you come up with good answers and you've shown leadership potential. That's why you're going in there. So when you go in there, essentially what he said was, and this is really good advice with a little caveat, when you go in there, he said, be yourself, right? Which is essentially what you said to this woman. Hey, well, what do you think you should do? And she said it, and you're like, yeah, so you should be yourself. So you have to be yourself. And the caveat is, listen, you're going into an environment. You are going to be professional. This is why I say there's a little caveat, because being yourself, you have to use at least some level of caution, because you might be a very nice person. You can err on the side of being too nice. You can err on the side of being too hard. What I recommend is you err on the side of being a little bit too hard. Does this mean come off the top ropes? No. But it is much easier to start with a tight leash and give slack as people earn trust and whatnot, than it is to go in there with a bunch of slack and then all of a sudden you've got to jerk the chain and now that's a problem. So err on this. I mean, we joke about it all the time. Leif jokes about it all the time, because when he came into Task Unit Bruiser, I didn't smile at anyone for 6 weeks, and Colonel Hackworth didn't smile at anyone for the first month. And so why is that? It's erring on the side of being professional. It's erring on the side of being, was that the right word? Hard? I guess being professional. Yeah. Err on the side of being professional, not overly friendly, because overly friendly is hard to judge the way people are going to respond to that. People might go, oh, cool, she wants to be our friend, and she, that's the way it's going to be. Cool. I don't really have to listen to her. So err on the side of being professional. the last thing I had was, and now this is the counter to being too hard. The counter to being too hard is, why would you need to come in there and be all authoritative? Well, it's because you're insecure about people thinking that you're a good leader, which when you go in and you act all authoritative, everyone thinks, they don't think, wow, that person's really authoritative. What they think is they're not very confident in their leadership skills, and that's why they're trying to browbeat us with their rank.
Yeah.
So you think you're coming across one way by being hyper authoritative, but what you're really doing is putting yourself on report for being insecure about your leadership. So we want to be balanced, right? We want to err towards being professional. We want to err with enough confidence and authority that people go, okay, we get it, but we don't want to go to a point where people go, oh, insecure, got it.
And don't underestimate, especially if they know you, how easy it is for them to see what you're doing. Like, you walk in like, whoa, Jocko, man, it's so easy for them to see if you're overshooting the mark kind of by design. So just like you said, I mean, you need to be yourself and be authentic. I totally, what you said about that and using the examples of, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm going to make clear, like, I'm going to hold the line. And those things, these are the things that are important, and this is the way we're going to be. And I can throttle back. That's much easier than trying to tighten up the slack at the beginning. But if you overshoot the mark, they're going to see it a mile away. And it's that thing we talked about before, is perspective, is what are they going to see versus what you're seeing. And if you're detached enough, it's very obvious how clear it's going to be that you are hyper insecure if you walk in and out of the blue, like, whoa, that was a really aggressive introduction speech, Jocko. We've been working together for 4 years. Where did that come from?
And here's the problem with everything that we're saying right now. Everything that we're saying right now is going to edge someone towards completely overthinking this, right? Which is why, look, you're in this position, you're being promoted, you're being put in that position of leadership because people have seen the way you perform, they trust you. So be yourself, and then add 6% of professionalism, extra professionalism, and you'll dial it right in there.
What's funny is that the conversation that we had took about like 90 seconds. When we talked on the phone, she's like, "Oh, that's great. I just wanted to get your take on it." It was just like you said. We have talked way more longer than we did, because it was, hey, don't overthink this. Be yourself. Think about what's important to you. Announce that. Come in, let them know what's going on, and then move on from there. And that was kind of the entire thing.
Did you debrief with her?
Oh, totally.
And I mean, all good?
Well, two things. One, yes, it was all good. And two, the beauty of that is she said it was a non-event.
Yeah.
It was totally, of course it was. And that's what we talked about is, hey, this is not, this thing, if people, your introduction speech, if you're taking command of a battalion or a brigade, or if you're taking command as those speeches, they're not important. Yeah. What matters is what you are and who you are during that entire time. And we create these things in our mind, like, I got to hit this speech out of the park.
Yeah.
Like it's some big thing. Ask me how many CO introduction speeches I remember in my 23-year career.
If you feel the need to go in there and make a big statement, what part of your brain do you think is feeling that need? It's a little something called your ego.
There you go. Totally.
So heads up for that. When you're on the high ground, you want to stay there, because every time you take a step down, at some point, you're going to have to step back up.